Urban, and as usual, I'm sitting in for the regular host, Comrade Pratt Jr. So we are live on Facebook at Pan African Television. We are live on YouTube at Pan African Television. We are live across 48 African countries and other parts of Europe via satellite. Once again, my name is Ivan Barnes Urban. Well, today's topic pretty much is very interesting. Topic tabled for our conversation is the dancing graveyard. Well, you recall that not too long ago, some pictures about the new, edifice and the new renovated Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park has been surfacing on social media. We've heard quite a number of comments from, other phases of the society, some congratulating the president for this work. Others also, bringing up deep, insights about this very subject matter. And you do know that the place, the Memorial Park, it's a park significantly, put together for or perhaps dedicated to the memory of Ghana's first president, for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, of course, where his mortal remains, of course, laid. Well, today we're going to be having a lot of insight in this very conversation because we have been joined in the studio by a comrade who so well believes in Nkrumahist ideology and could share with us some deep insight. But before we get into this very conversation, Comrade Pratt Jr. has penned down a document that I would like to share with you, and this would be a starting point for this conversation. And it reads, and of course, it's been themed as disrespect. And it says that dancing on Nkrumah's grave. It says so this is by Abena Asegu Boaten, and it says another disrespect to the founder of the modern Republic of Ghana, for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Another disrespect to the founder of the modern Republic of Ghana, for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, is just about to be inaugurated by His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo Addo, President of the Republic. An official announcement from the Ministry of Tourism, Art and Culture says that the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum, or the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, which has now been renovated to promote nightlife, will be opened at 10 a.m. July 2023. Now, according to the letter dated June 27, 2023, a sign by John Yao Agbeko, the Chief Director of the ministry, the park has been fitted with enhanced features, including the restaurant, craft shop, and it goes on and on. Now, it says that obviously we are now being invited by the Akufo Addo government to wine, dine, and dance on the grave of Nkrumah. What a befitting tribute for those who continue to hate Nkrumah with passion and support the CIA-sponsored coup on February 24, 1966. Nkrumah's greatness does not lie in these burial grounds, but the validity of the ideas he imbibed and spread from Pan-Africanism and socialism. Akufo Addo and his friends can dance on the grave, but he will continue to be the real founder of the modern Republic of Ghana and of course, the chief inspirer of the African Union, prospering under the banner of socialism. So there you have it. There you heard for yourself. There are quite a number of persons that believe that this is just, a phase. This is just, a path, so to speak, to mock, the former founder of Ghana. Well, I do not have all the experts or all the insight to discuss this matter extensively. I've been joined in the studio by Comrade Bernard Mornah, who is going to help us discuss this matter extensively. With a resounding round of applause, help me invite upstage Bernard Mornah.
Sometimes it's a disadvantage to be taller. And then particularly so when your height is above presidential height. Good evening to you all. First and foremost, let me appreciate the honor of being invited to come and speak on a topic regarding our founder, the first president of our nation, the first prime minister of our nation, the only leader of government business, the man who is credited in history to have died once but buried thrice. It's obvious that Kwame Nkrumah's beginning was that of a poor man, and that his father was a goldsmith. His mother was just a housewife, more or less to speak. He grew up from the village of Nkrofo. He is said to officially have been born in 1902. He struggled his way from Nkrofo to Achimota Secondary School and went all the way to Pennsylvania, where he studied in the United States of America and later to the United Kingdom. In his studies abroad, he came face to face with the struggles of the black man and joined other colleagues from the continent of Africa, inspired by the works of Marcus Garvey, to form the Pan-African Congress. And the 5th Pan-African Congress that was held in the United Kingdom, Manchester, Kwame Nkrumah illustrated and called for a greater sense of an African government. It was around that 5th Pan-African Congress that one of the members of the then movement of the United Gold Coast Convention, who participated at the invitation of Kwame Nkrumah, realized the full potentials of this man, seeing that, look, the little struggles that they are pursuing, there was a bigger struggle. Checks by Akwaji revealed that Kwame Nkrumah was actually from the Gold Coast then. So he returned to inform the founder of the United Gold Coast Convention. But I say founder and financier or founder. The founder was Pa Grant, as all of you are aware. So Pa Grant said that, well, if we have one of our own outside of the continent struggling, then it was important that we bring him to the Gold Coast so that we can see how we can prosecute our attainment of independence. When this call was made to Kwame Nkrumah to come to the Gold Coast, he hesitated because his vision was to see an African liberated continent and not just that of the Gold Coast. And so he declined initially to come, but upon persuasion from the likes of George Padmon and others, he agreed, because they said that we are struggling for the liberation of Africa outside of the continent of Africa. So it would be better to have a stronghold in Africa where all Pan-Africanists can come and meet and converge so that we can explore the possibilities of the African or United Africa from Africa. So the persuasions of those people compelled Kwame Nkrumah to come. When Kwame Nkrumah came back in 1947, and the United Gold Coast Convention, of course, was formed, he joined and was immediately made the Secretary General of the United Gold Coast Convention. When he started moving and realizing that the membership of the United Gold Coast Convention was actually not interested in the United Africa. In fact, they were not even interested in the independence of Ghana. What they were interested was to be found in privileged positions so that they and their businesses can prosper. So you had the United Gold Coast Convention was made up of the business magnate Pa Grant and supported by a few lawyers. And so it was a collection of the favored in society. They were interested in what I call micro representation in the Legislative Assembly and later the Executive Committee of Governance. They were not fully interested in the independence of our Gold Coast. Kwame Nkrumah thought otherwise. And of course, when Kwame Nkrumah came, there were only 2 offices of the United Gold Coast Convention. We had one in the Secondary area where Pa Grant comes from, and of course one in Accra. Kwame Nkrumah realized that the idea of prosecuting a political independence cannot be achieved by only the elite and the wealthy. So he invited and forced the expansion of the UGCC to include what they then called the veranda boys and girls, to include the ordinary people of our society. Within a year and 2, Kwame Nkrumah has expanded the branches of the United Gold Coast Convention from 2 to 60. He became very popular and acceptable to every person, including the women in the market, the fishermen at shore, the farmers in their farms, the fitting shops. Everywhere Kwame Nkrumah had magnified and spread the idea of the United Gold Coast Convention as the crucible upon which Ghana could attain its independence. Fast forward, the membership of the UGCC, the Echelons, realized that no, Kwame Nkrumah was becoming too radical in the mobilization to the extent that he was actually taking away their shine. So they were not happy. So in 1948, on the 28th February 1948, you had one of the chiefs of Osu Alata, the Alata Manche, who decided that, look, their businesses were being frustrated by the presence of the Europeans. And so he decided to organize mass action against European goods. And therefore, the 1948 boycott of European goods. That boycott was not spearheaded by the United Gold Coast Convention. But when the event occurred, we noticed that what then happened was that the Gold Coast administration did not understand how all of a sudden European shops were being looted. The demonstration was widespread because, of course, when these demonstrations were being held, you recall that also ex-servicemen were shot. And in the course of that, they decided that they should look for leaders of the United Gold Coast Convention, because at the time, they were the only people who were pressurizing the colonial administration to ensure that they got a place. In their rounds, they got to the current president's father's house and met a group of people, including Kwame Nkrumah, who were discussing how come that the riot took place without their knowledge. And of course, when they swooped on them, they arrested about 6. These 6 had no idea whatsoever how the demonstration, which has eventually led to the boycott and looting of the European shops, took place, including Kwame Nkrumah. When they were arrested, and one of the persons that was arrested alongside was William Oforiatta, who had actually gone to Akufo Addo on a visit. And so he was given a table aside and given a cup of tea to drink. But of course, when they met them there, they arrested him. And all of a sudden, the media captioned that the big 6 of the Gold Coast were arrested. It is not because they did anything extraordinary, but it was a media caption. And I want everybody to note that it was a media caption that said big 6. Because if you go into the history to want to find out what contribution they made, in order to qualify to be called the big 6, you will find none, except that they swoop on these people at Edward Akufo Addo's house, and of course, the 6 of them. Otherwise, how can you claim that there is a big 6 to the exclusion of the person who founded and funded the United Gold Coast Convention? And the person who founded and funded the United Gold Coast Convention is Pa Grant. So you cannot be talking about anybody bigger than the man who organized the people, who actually paid each one of them anytime they traveled to Sekondi and back to Accra. And so that idea of the big 6 is a fiction, is the creation of a media, and it is important that we speak loudly about it, that there is nothing called the big 6. And I'm insisting that there is nothing called the big 6 because it was just a media caption. And so when they set up the commission to investigate how come that this thing came, all the other 5 members that were arrested, from Dankwa to Akwaje to William Oforiatta, Edward Akufo Addo, all of them said that they had no idea, and that Nkrumah was too radical, and that he, Nkrumah, is even a communist because they found an unsigned Communist Party card within his archives. And because of that, they all said that it was Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah was the only one who said that despite that he was unaware of the events, he supported it, and that if he had known about it, he would have made it even more potent. So if you deny knowledge of the event of the 28th February 1948, you distance yourself from it, and that event is the reason for which they are calling people big, how can you appropriate the title big? So I wanted that chapter to be closed. So around that time, Nkrumah realized that no, these are not people he could trust. Because whilst Nkrumah was insisting that, look, we cannot be subjects to any group of people. In fact, one of the things Kwame Nkrumah said at the time was that we prefer independence to danger than servitude in tranquility. And so when Kwame Nkrumah started speaking in this manner, the Dankwas and others who were timorous souls decided that no, we have to expel this man from the United Gold Coast Convention. And just when they were thinking that they were going to manifest, the young people said, like, Kwame Nkrumah, you are wasting your time. We want you to be our leader. And on 12 June 1949 at Solpon, the young people decided that they would not allow Kwame Nkrumah to continue to be with the United Gold Coast Convention. And of course, they made Kwame Nkrumah to break away where the Convention People's Party was formed. That is the accurate history and events leading to Kwame Nkrumah's activism. Just then, Kwame Nkrumah was arrested for being a radical. And then they decided that once Kwame Nkrumah was arrested and they were pushing for independence and self-government now, they could lead the processes so that Kwame Nkrumah, by the time he gets out of jail, because he was not around, they could conduct elections and then they win. They conducted the elections in 1951. Whilst Kwame Nkrumah was in jail in Ashford, his political party won the elections. Now there was a dilemma as to what the governor could do, because the leader of the political party will automatically become the leader of government business. So they had to hold on and to go to the United Kingdom to agree on what to do, and eventually they had no option than to release the man who was in prison and won elections. Remember that Kwame Nkrumah comes from Nkrofo, far distant from Accra. But at that time, he contested elections in Accra Central, now Ododiodio. And he won massively against even an indigene, Akwaje. That will tell you that Kwame Nkrumah's way of doing business was so heavy that it impacted largely on the lives of the people than just to talk about tribalism and what have you. And so the people accepted Kwame Nkrumah for what he stood for the ideas that he brought into the system, and eventually he was released and became the leader of government business. In order that Kwame Nkrumah did not get to where he wanted to, they were not happy with the outcome of the election. So they called for another elections. So in 1954, there was another elections. Just 2 years, take note, 2 years, they called for another elections. And when they called for that election, Kwame Nkrumah and the CPP won even massively than before. They were unhappy. 2 years later, when Kwame Nkrumah was tabling the motion of destiny, they didn't agree. So they called for another election in 1956. So within a space of 5 years, 3 elections were conducted in the Gold Coast. And anytime they conducted election, Kwame Nkrumah and the CPP increased. In 1956, on 27th of April, 1956, they won the elections. When they won the elections, the colonial government had no option than to accept the outcome and to grant Ghana's independence. And so, while the elections were conducted in 1956, you will note that the Declaration of Independence was done in 1957. There was no election in 1957, but the elections were conducted in 1956. And so, on 6th March 1957, Kwame Nkrumah declared our independence and said that the independence of Ghana was meaningless unless it's linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. You will take note that from the beginning, I said that Kwame Nkrumah was working from outside Ghana to ensure a continental Africa, a united country called Africa. And so, at independence, he made that statement very potent and louder, that the independence that we are getting in the small corner or the center of the world called Ghana, that independence is incomplete unless we link up with all the other fragments of the African continent. Kwame Nkrumah became, and Ghana became, the rally ground for all other Pan-Africanists. Kenneth Kaunda was here. Patrice Lumumba was here. You had the like of Robert Mugabe. They were all here to come and take political education at the then ideological college at Winneba so that they can prosecute. Kwame Nkrumah, in all this struggle, wanted a united Africa. Along the line, he realized that after we attained independence in 1957, we were still subjected to allowing our laws our programs and policies to be approved by the Queen. Because he was a prime minister, and all prime ministers were subjected to the control of the Queen. And so even laws, including the Prevention Detention Act, had to receive the assent of the Queen. So even around that time, there were governors. Governor generals were still ruling us. Kwame Nkrumah was there. And so Kwame Nkrumah said, no, we want to be independent. And he moved the agenda fast. And in 1960, we had to do two things: a general elections and a referendum to move away from prime ministerialship to a Republican status. Take note. So 1960, on the 27th of April 1960, elections were conducted. And when the elections were conducted, Kwame Nkrumah contested on the ticket of the CPP. Dankwa was the leader of the then United Party. And when they contested the elections in 1960 on the 27th of April, the outcome was this. Kwame Nkrumah got in excess of 1 million, almost 1.1 million votes. Dankwa got 120,000 votes. Kwame Nkrumah got 89.1% of the votes. Dankwa got 10.9% of the vote. Dankwa contested that we should vote no against the referendum that will allow us to become a republic. And beneath it, he said, save Ghana now, because if we became a republic, we will not save our nation. I am establishing this historical background for you to understand why, if today President Akufo Addo is president, they will do everything not to recognize 1st July as the ultimate day that Ghana attained independence. Because the doyen of their brackets, Dankwa, actually opposed 1st July, campaigned for a no, Kwame Nkrumah won, and they cannot accept Kwame Nkrumah as the man of the movement. And so when 1st July became our republic, and then we moved from prime ministerialship to presidency, and of course that presidency is the reason for which Akufo Addo is president today. Otherwise, would have still been subjected to the control, whims and caprices of the United Kingdom under the new leadership of King Charles. And so obviously they are unhappy. So when President Akufo Addo decided to change 1st July, make it a commemorative day so that people cannot understand, this is the real reason. Because Dankwa contested, he opposed the 1st July Republic status, he contested on the ticket of no, vote no against the referendum, Kwame Nkrumah, and he got a paltry 10.9%. Kwame Nkrumah got 89.1%. That is the wideness of the gap. And they simply cannot tolerate this history of Kwame Nkrumah. So Kwame Nkrumah became the first president. Take note, he was the first leader of the government business. He became first prime minister. Then, of course, he moved to become the first president of Ghana. When he became first president, in fact, just when he was even prime minister, they started everything to kill Kwame Nkrumah, including doing subtle poisons, which will not work. So they decided that they would start throwing bombs. So as early as 1958, they started putting bombs in bouquet for school children to go and kill Kwame Nkrumah, and Kwame Nkrumah obviously survived. School children were killed. One of the ladies, I think recently she passed, who was a dancewoman, suffered the bomb, and you could see most often her leg was swollen. So that is evident that, look, this so-called now MPP people, used to be called Matemihon people, are actually very dangerous people within the political landscape of now Ghana. I have decided to go into this detail in order that I can come for you to appreciate. Kwame Nkrumah, obviously, in his African expansion, supported the likes of Guinea with about 10 million pounds those days, because the French decided that once Guinea threatened and they got their independence, they wanted to teach Guinea a lesson so that no other African country would move. Kwame Nkrumah supported them with about 10 million pounds. When Mali and the Modibo Keita decided that they would also oppose France, and decided to form their own currency and what have you, they wanted to show them a lesson. In the course of showing them the lesson, they took away even blackboards that they put. They went to the classrooms to tear them. Kwame Nkrumah supported them so that they can stay, because anytime any of the newly liberated African countries failed, it will give chance for these Europeans to come and take over. And so that is how come Kwame Nkrumah expanded. And it was no surprise that Guinea, Mali, and Ghana formed a union so that that could have become the basis upon which Africa could then evolve with a continental currency, a continental government, a continental high command, and of course a continental central bank. What did they do? They killed Kwame Nkrumah along the line. They killed him by overthrowing him in 1966. And of course, when he had gone out there under their own Perkins to go and ensure peace in Hanoi, they decided that they will overthrow his government. And those who actually led the prosecution of the overthrow of the government were given $13 million each, including Afrifa, Kotoka, and Hali. Each one of them was given $13 million at a time, so as to ensure that they just overthrew one person, because Kwame Nkrumah was bigger and powerful. So having overthrown Kwame Nkrumah, of course, the president of Guinea invited Kwame Nkrumah and made him a co-president of Guinea. Another landmark that is not achievable by anybody in our recent times. So whilst Kwame Nkrumah was there, a coup was organized in 1972. We were told that he was supposed to be brought back, but around that time, he was actually suffering from cancer, and he died in Bucharest, Romania. Kwame Nkrumah was buried initially in Guinea-Conakry. They brought Kwame Nkrumah's body from Guinea-Conakry and buried him at Nkrofol as a village man. In 1991, Dr. Don Arthur, who was then the minister for, or PNDC secretary for Works and Housing, decided that no, they were the people who were around, they were students that Kwame Nkrumah sent outside to go and procure more knowledge to come and safeguard the nation that he was building. So once he got the opportunity, they wanted to rehabilitate Kwame Nkrumah. Dr. Don Arthur is the reason for which we have the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. He started mobilizing money from everybody, designed, because you know he's an architect as well, designed the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. And if you look at the mausoleum, you will see that it is the trunk of a tree. You will see the roots are here, the trunk is there. So it is a tree that was growing to bear fruit so that all African people can profit from it. But the tree was truncated at the top. So take note, that is the symbolism of the mausoleum, that it is a tree that has been truncated. And I'm saying that that tree was cut. But today, the young people of Africa, and through science, we will graft it, and it will blossom for the continent of Africa. So Kwame Nkrumah died once, was buried in Guinea, was conveyed to Nkrofol, and in 1992, he was brought to Accra to be buried. And the day that Africa became a united continent, I can assure you, Kwame Nkrumah will be moved to the headquarters of the new Africa capital, and will be buried probably 4 times. That is a thing you cannot take away. In doing all this, it is evident that the Matemiho, the UP, the MPPs are simply confused. So Akufo Addo decided that once he became president, he should do everything to diminish the status of Kwame Nkrumah. But the more Akufo Addo tried to deteriorate the status of Kwame Nkrumah, the more Kwame Nkrumah became magnified. Because when Akufo Addo, for instance, visited Cuba, as soon as he got to Cuba, the first place they took him to was Kwame Nkrumah Park. He had no option than to go and pay glowing tribute to the man that he had decided to discredit in his own town. When Kwame Nkrumah got to Addis Ababa, Akufo Addo got to Addis Ababa, the AU headquarters, the first image he saw was that it was only Kwame Nkrumah that was there. He was unhappy and insisted that, look, they should even add the likes of Haile Selassie I have no problem with it, but that should not be coming from the president of Ghana. Even the people of Ethiopia did not want Haile Selassie to be added, but Akufo Addo was proposing it. And so, if you go to the AU, you will see Kwame Nkrumah, the only person that was put there. And this was done in consultation with the then Kwame Nkrumah Centenary Planning Committee, chaired by Professor Akila Pasoya. The Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, and the lie that was told yesterday by President Akufo Addo, is that ever since it was done and commissioned in 1992, no works has been done. But President Akufo Addo was a minister when President Kufuor celebrated Ghana at 50 in 2007. There was renovation in 2007 to commemorate Ghana at 50. And of course, in 2009 to 2010, when President Mills set up the Kwame Nkrumah Centenary Planning Committee to celebrate the 100 years of Kwame Nkrumah and his achievements, the life and times of Kwame Nkrumah, that park was renovated. And I wrote a letter as the secretary inviting Akufo Addo, who participated in the events at the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, for Akufo Addo yesterday to come and say that, look, since the establishment of this park, no renovation has ever taken place. It's a lie. In fact, the renovation that took place yesterday, and of course all of you saw, and I have a copy of the brochure that took place, was that they wanted to use the occasion again to magnify themselves. One, because any program that you design, you put the people who are supposed to act on that program, either their pictures or their names. Vice President Mahmoud Bawumia was not an invitee and did not attend the program. If you look at the brochure, his picture is there. Chief of Staff Frema Pare was not at the program. Her picture is there. Minister for Roads was not at the program. His picture is there, and he had no role to play. Kojo Oppong Nkrumah was not at the program. His picture is there. In fact, those many people who were supposed to be there, her pictures were not there. And of course, yesterday, as we are told, this project will cost or costed the government of Ghana $3.5 million. And so if you look at $3.5 million, for you to just go and construct a gift shop, a presidential library, and do small refurbishment, Master, if you don't understand that people chop money, this one there, you have seen that people chop money. People chop money. So these are people who hate Kwame Nkrumah so much. But they themselves admitted yesterday that the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, the man they despise so much, is one of the centers that attract a lot of tourists into this country. And when these tourists come, the little money they earn, yesterday they said that they earn about 2.5 million. Just last year, they earned 2.5 million by the people who visited that site. So do you understand why they had no option than to, quote, give it a facelift to entrust more tourists? They hate Kwame Nkrumah, but Kwame Nkrumah has become the biggest generator of wealth. They have commercialized Kwame Nkrumah for their own good. The man that they don't like is now the one who is fetching them so much money for the liberation of our economy. And I think that that is one thing that all of us must put our hand on. So all these things are happening, not because President Akufo Addo loves Kwame Nkrumah so much, but that whatever he does, Kwame Nkrumah continues to be big. Because anybody who is worth his salt is a Pan-Africanist, is a black American, or is a black Englishman, or is of any Caribbean nature. When you set foot in Ghana, the first place you want to go is to go to Kwame Nkrumah's Memorial Park to be told the history that ran through. And if you go to Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, you enter the mausoleum and you go round, and you are indeed not angry at the extent to which we have been exploited and denied, then of course it means that you are not a human being. So Kwame Nkrumah yesterday, the park was inaugurated. And in inaugurating it, they are telling us that it is a commercial center, not the place that Pan-Africanism is supposed to grow. But I assure them that just as I did before the start of the construction, when the construction was ongoing, I was one of the few people who got to the site. And then they had created a wall. And that wall, where they put it as the Wall of Fame, they wanted to put what they call the so-called Big Six, that I have just established that they are no big. They wanted to put their effigies on that Wall of Fame. And I told the contractors that if no one will do anything today, you can be assured that I will come and dismantle this wall, because there is no Big Six, and this is called Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park. Subsequently, the contractors and the consultants assured me that indeed this is Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park, and they went further. Yesterday when I got there, even though they did not invite me, and I said that I didn't need invitation to be in my father's house. Kwame Nkrumah's Memorial Park is our house. We don't need invitation to be there. So anything that is happening there, good or bad, it is our duty to go and see. If it is not right, we will poo-poo it there. If it is right, then we clap. So I went there without invitation, because that is my father's house. Those who came there yesterday, including President Akufo Addo, are mere tenants. They can be sacked any day. So today, the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park that we have spent about $3.5 million on, they say we can go there and eat food. They say we can go there and dance. We are told that they have put some lightings there, because I didn't go there in the night. But I'm just hoping that they are not gay lights. I'm just hoping that they are natural lights representing the symbolism of the African people, so that we will continue to enjoy the fruits of the Kwame Nkrumah. I'm happy that yesterday I noticed that the fountains have been refitted. I'm also happy that they have put some songs that rhyme with the flow of the water that will spring out. And of course, it looks beautiful, no doubt about it. We will dance around Kwame Nkrumah, not to their glory, but to the glory of Kwame Nkrumah and to the greater unity of the African continent, because Kwame Nkrumah remains the one and only Pan-Africanist that is known in global terms. Finally, before I submit for you to ask questions, let me reiterate the point that Kwame Nkrumah was a young man. In his 20s, he was a student activist. In his 30s, he became a continental activist. By the time he became 40, he was the leader of government business, having successfully prosecuted the liberation of the then Gold Coast. If you are a young man in your 20s, in your 30s, rising to your 40, and you have no purpose to achieve the greater unity and freedom of our continent, you have to re-examine your life. If Kwame Nkrumah could do it in his 20s, 30s, and 40s, he was already leading a country, we are capable of doing so. Kwame Nkrumah expanded the frontiers, brought knowledge that today we are enjoying. The many contributions that Kwame Nkrumah has made are the reason for which we still are alive. Many industries, many institutions that Kwame Nkrumah set up, we have sold them. One of the things we sold is Ghana Airways. One of the things we sold is the Black Star Line, which is the shipping company that used to bring everything into our country. Now, when you sell your airline and you are asked to build airports, do you get any sense in it? You are building airports, but the only aeroplanes you have sold them out. Who are you building the airports for? For some other people's plane to come and land? Kwame Nkrumah built for us an infrastructure called Ghana Telecom. We decided to sell it. For flimsy reasons, we brought in Vodafone. Vodafone today has made all the money they want in 4 or multiple times. Today, they are going because they have made wealth out of our nation. All sons and daughters of Africa, rise and shine. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Bernard Mornah, for this very insightful and powerful submission. But I'm sure my comrades here are looking forward to asking questions and also contributing to this subject matter. Thank you so much. I think we just have about some 12 minutes to go, so I'll quickly do this. Let me read some messages, then I come back to the floor and we'll take some questions and contribution. You're good, right? Sure. Great. All right. So let me quickly start with this. This one says that I salute Comrade Mornah and Pan-African Television for this submission. This one says that, good evening, comrades. I'm very grateful for the presentation. If all these can be put into the history book of our kids, for our kids, Kwame Nkrumah never dies. Thank you very much. The new government is trying to change the history of Ghana, but they will never succeed. Nkrumah never dies. Thank you very much for your submission. This one says that... hello, please. Is this talk by Comrade Mornah organized by the Socialist Movement of Ghana? I'd really like to join. I think I shared the contact with you, so you can quickly call and they would attend to you. And this one says that this is the reason why the NPP government is trying to erase Dr. Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana's history. We know who our president is, so tell Bernard Mornah to forget him. I like that. This one says that... good evening, Pan-African Television. Mr. Bernard Mornah is my mentor. He's an excellent lecturer. God bless you, Bernard Mornah. I am Bernard from Kumasi. Thank you, Bernard from Kumasi, for your message. This one says that, good evening, Pan-African Television. I earnestly want to be a member of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. I went to their website, but I saw no avenue to reach them. I'm a young teacher who believes in socialism and the ideals of Nkrumah. I will be grateful if I could be linked to Comrade Pratt Jr. I first encountered... Okay, thank you very much. This one says that, dancing on Nkrumah's grave, we have never really honored this great immortal son of Ghana. It's either we still have not realized the worth of some people want to mock him or bury his immortality so they can project their parochial interest. I continue and will stand by the conviction that the so-called doyens and their likes are enemies of Ghana and never wanted the independence of Ghana. They enjoyed and benefited from our colonialism. No wonder their offsprings are running this country into abyss. Thank you very much for this message. This one says that from Comrade Biri Emmanuel Bibieni, Nkrumah was a prophet for Africa. No president can compare himself to Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Thank you very much for this message. This one says that Comrade Bernard Mornah, he's a historian and a man full of wisdom. Thank you, Palaver and Socialist. This coming from Moses from Asujaman at Timpoku. Thank you very much. The message keeps on coming and coming. And if I should continue, I won't get a chance to, interact with my studio audience. So, as you know, the norm. I'll start with you, Comrade. 2, Comrade Najib 3, Comrade Kelly 4, and Hack 5. So quickly, let's do it. Please, brief, simple, and short. Thank you.
We are very grateful to Comrade Mornah for these insightful lectures. I'll call this a lecture. But there's one thing. All of a sudden, I was surprised this board took a loan of $3.5 million to renovate this place. How can this board do that? Not knowing there's something behind. They chopped all the monies because when I went there yesterday, there was nothing to show for that 3 million Ghana cedis. Meanwhile, some people are sitting under the trees. Dollars. Some people are sitting on the trees and writing on sand to be promoted as Ghanaians. Please, let's rise up and shine. Thank you.
Good evening, comrades, and good evening, viewers. Comrade Mornah, thank you very much. But please, let me ask you: did you see Kwame Nkrumah in person? I saw him when I was 5. And I bet at the independent circle, the runabout, very, very electrifying. You see the population, everybody in white handkerchief. The man is a great man. He has done a lot for us, but what we have done for him is very little. And the great question I want to ask is, when is Ghana going to try Kwame Nkrumah and vindicate him? Because when he left the soil, he never came back. But JJ and Co and Kufuor, we had reconciliation. They defended themselves. When are we going to try Kwame Nkrumah and vindicate him? Because when he was overthrown, certain books and things were written about him very, very, very bad. When are we going to vindicate him? He is our Mao Zedong. Thank you.
Good evening, comrades. Well, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was the only head of state, president, whose body in a casket was carried by head of state from different African countries. So redevelopmental, monument of this edifice, they need to do more. And they don't need to take credits. No political party, they as in political party, to take credit for that. He said, I am an African, not because I was in Africa. I'm African because African was born in me. So, Comrade Bernard Mornah, you've said it all. That was a splendid note. But my question is, this time around that this edifice is coming around, is it for political gains? You know, as a journalist, people are asking me. I don't know what to say. So I want to hear from the horse's mouth. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much, Comrade Bernard Mornah. I think that was electrifying, and I literally heard everything I wanted to hear and even more. But just a few remarks also on this. I think the attempt to rewrite history didn't even start today. They've tried it with propaganda against the achievement of Nkrumah and what it actually stood for by calling him all sorts of things in propaganda. They said he was a dictator. That was refuted. It didn't go anywhere. They said he was giving out Ghana money giving out to charity and all that. But Nkrumah still remains the only president we ever had who doesn't even have a personal property left for his children to inherit. And that was another significant thing we need to remember. And Nkrumah never dies. He was a true son of the land. And whatever these Matimihu people and the anti-Nkrumahs contend and remains and continue to do will never change any of that. The evidence is in what they go outside there to see, because Nkrumah was not limited to Ghana. He was limited to Africa and the world at large. Thank you.
Thank you to my senior brother and comrade. I learn a lot from him every time he comes around. What I'd like to say is that any attempt to erase who Nkrumah is nothing but absolute foolishness. It is like moving a mountain with your bare foot by kicking it. Nkrumah is so prominent that he cannot be pushed aside in any way by these Mateme people, and by now they should have known that. Kwame Nkrumah is the founder of modern day Ghana, whether they like it or not. Like the lead speaker has said, there's nothing like Big Sis. There's the big one. There's the founder of modern day Ghana, and he will continue to be none but the Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Nkrumah, it took him piece by piece, takenly, to put this country together. The Gold Coast, the Northern Territories, he went into the Volta run and made sure that he brought Trans-Volta Togoland into forming what has become today's Ghana. So whether they like it or not, we will not allow them to reduce him to a celebrity like what they want to do. They want to reduce him to a celebrity and make the place as an entertainment grounds to make money. Nkrumah remains the founder of Ghana. Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I think that you have splendid contributions. The answer, whether I saw Kwame Nkrumah, no. I was born after Kwame Nkrumah had even been buried. Because if Kwame Nkrumah died in 1972 and I was born in 73, obviously I didn't see him. But I pride myself that I was born 9 months after Kwame Nkrumah. Means that the day that he died, I was also, my father impregnated my mother. So, so you can call me the Nkrumah if you so like. But more importantly, I just wanted to continue from where my brother is. There was no Ghana. The thing we call Ghana today was the deliberate assembling or assemblage by Kwame Nkrumah. You had the Ashanti, you had the colony. The colony was made up of the in fact, the regions were Greater Accra included the now Eastern region. Ashanti include the Bono Ahafo regions. So the colony was Ashanti and the Greater Accra. Then you had the Trans-Togoland Volta, which was initially colonized by the Germans. Then you had the Northern Territories, part of which was actually colonized by the Germans. And then, that time, it was even called the Northern Territories, NTs. How Kwame Nkrumah managed to lobby these people. And if you go to the Nakpanduri, all the way spaces, you will notice that as early as late 1950s, Kwame Nkrumah went and constructed a road through the Scap. Why? Because it was one of the reasons that enabled them to vote in the plebiscite so that they can join Ghana. So, as a commitment, Kwame Nkrumah said that instead of using this footpath, I will come and create a pass for you. And it was done as early as that time. Otherwise, that side all belonged to, if you move from the Nakpanduri, Bumpurugu, all the way to Pekpra, they all then belonged to the then German holdings. But Kwame Nkrumah managed to put them together. So the greatness of Kwame Nkrumah cannot be subsumed. The other point that I want to make is that, look, this edifice that we are seeing, don't you know the times in which we are? The government is struggling to raise money. And they have done everything and they cannot raise money. They have gone to put a big house in Chebi to honor Dankwa. Nobody ever comes to go and visit Dankwa. But the Kwame Nkrumah Memorial Park continues to be the place that everybody that is black or has an interest in black knowledge will come and visit. And anytime they come, they spend money. And so the government thinks that, look, hey, we don't like Kwame Nkrumah, but he's a cash cow. Let's make money out of it. It's like those who say that Jesus Christ, and they killed Jesus Christ, but he has become a commercial commodity. It's those who killed Che Guevara, but today they commercialized Che Guevara to make money. In similar manner, the President Akufo Addo people has also killed Kwame Nkrumah, but they use Kwame Nkrumah to make money and to elevate themselves to say that, indeed, they also come from a part called Ghana. So there's no doubt that the reason for which this thing was done is purely to be able to cover up their economic mess. Because if they get 2.5 million Ghana cedis a year, it's obvious that is the motivation. And now they want to get about 1 million tourists at the park. And so to get 1 million tourists at the park, assuming that each tourist even spend 5 cedis just to visit the park, times million, how much are you talking about? That is 5 million. So that is money they are looking for. And that is the reason why they had to go, even in their anger, they had no option than to recognize Kwame Nkrumah. And yesterday, I was laughing when President Akufo Addo, in his speech, said that Kwame Nkrumah is the first president of Ghana. So if Kwame Nkrumah is the first president of Ghana, how come that you can found a nation without the one who led the nation to independence? Because when you put 4th August as the founding of our nation, Kwame Nkrumah is not found within the 4th August enclave. And so obviously, even by yesterday's submission, President Akufo Addo is agreeing that his history is wrong and corrupted. I thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Comrade Bernard Mornah. Time is fast spent. I'll take this one last this message. This one says that, hi, my name is Rizvan. It says, just to say a few, this administration is the most useless, I beg your pardon for using this word, the West wants since civilization. They know that just as every single Ghanaian alive and dead. The big sis is just a media caption, as you rightly said, but just an attempt to rewrite the history of this Nkrumah's Ghana. This is a mere attempt to infuse their ancestors into the independence struggle of this country. Independences or the various propaganda created to undermine the role and position of the young Nkrumah revolutionary leader or Sergeant for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. His vision is the major reason why Ghana continues to exist today. Thank you, Comrade Bernard Mornah. You have said it all. May God richly bless you. It's up to us to ensure the clarity reach the entire 31 and 32 million of Ghanaians. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. This is where time will permit us on the show. My name is Ivan Barnes Aban. We'll try as much as possible to take this conversation to the doorsteps of each and every Ghanaian. It's bye for now.